As you all know that these sessions are being organized by India International Education Council and School Lalaji Solutions. So I believe you all can see my screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. So, India International Education Council is a not-for-profit organization which is working in the field of education. It has collaborators from 12 countries. IIEC aims to create a better world through education. It also aims to build quality centers for elementary education, which are approachable for all kids. It also tries to find best educational practices across the globe and find ways to implement those in Indian institutions. It is also creating more awareness on hygiene and learning disabilities. It publishes a magazine called World Education Review and many other educational reports. It aims to build 100 chapters in different cities by 2022. It soon open its membership for institutions and individuals. It also imparts training for leaders, teachers, students, and parents. As I shared that this is a 76th session. So far, we have organized 75 sessions. We have received 6,992 registrations, 6,159 questions on national education policy. We have seen participation from 5 countries: India, USA, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Nepal. And from India, we have seen participation from 19 states and 79 cities. We aim to organize 200 sessions. In these sessions, we would be, interacting with or reaching out to 100,000 educators, 20,000 institutions, and 1,000 plus eminent speakers like today's speakers would be joining us to share their perspective and to guide us. So with this, I would request please join me in welcoming our speakers for this session. Our first key speaker, a noted academician, Dr. Pramod Sharmaji. Pramod, that needs no introduction. Uh, he is the vice president and founder principal of Genesis Global School, Noida, Uttar Pradesh. He's a noted academician with almost 5 decades of impeccable leadership. He has worked with many prestigious institutions like Dadoon School, Dehradun, India School, Kabul, Afghanistan, Ibu Oud Grammar School, Nigeria, Mayo College, Ajmer. He has been part of some institutions as principal like Tashi Academy, Gangtok, Sikkim, Yadvindra Public School, Punjab, and Mayo College, Ajmer, Rajasthan. He has been on a very professional observation stay at, Eton College, Loreto, Queen's College, United Kingdom, Darjeeling, the Academy in USA during the summer of 1988 and 2000. He has received very coveted national award for teachers from Ministry of Human Resource and Development, Government of India in 2000. He's also received Lifetime Achievement Award by IPSC. With this, I welcome you, Pramod sir. It's a huge honor, to have you as a speaker. Thank you for joining. Our next key speaker, Mr. Arpit Panjwani. Arpit ji is director with Ma Anandamayi Memorial School, Dehradun. He has been recognized as a leader of top 40 leader under 40 by Business World Education. He's a transformative school leader, edupreneur seeking to mitigate educational deficiencies. He's also a climate leader, mentor of change at Atal Innovation Mission. He's also a TEDx organizer. We welcome you, Arpit ji. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, sir. Our next key speaker, Ajay Bansal ji, is principal with Saraf Public School, Khatima, Uttarakhand. He is an academician with over 33 years of experience. He has been recognized multiple times by different esteemed bodies for his work and dedication in the field of education and the social services. He's received awards like Rajdhani Ratna Award, Rajiv Gandhi Educational Excellence, India Leadership Award, Ideal Principal Award, and Dr. S. Radhakrishnan Samman for contribution in social welfare, environmental protection, and promotion of Indian art, culture, dance, and music. We welcome you, Ajay. Honor to have you. Our next speaker, Suphika Biswas, is principal of the Vidya Training Institute, Delhi. He's an academician with decades of experience. She has been recognized and awarded for her contribution to the field of education. We welcome Suphika ji. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Our another key speaker for the day, Kunal ji. Kunal ji is training and placement officer with Government Polytechnic of Haryana. He is a technical and management educationist, having years of experience in the teaching and academic administration in prestigious institutions of Haryana. He is also president of a Polytechnic Teacher Welfare Association. He has a unique distinction to motivate students at low level so that they can stand on their own in the society by either joining public or private organizations. So far, he's helped hundreds of students to get in their organizations, also their students for training in different industries. Kunalji, thank you for you.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, sir. Our next Dr. Ramin Pandey. Dr. Pandey is professor with SM University. He was a PESP post fellow, which is a very prestigious fellowship of Latin America. He was also a research associate at Translational Health Science and Technology Institute. Did his doctorate, from University of Delhi, and EACF, which is Tuberculosis Aerosol Challenge. He is on the editorial board of more than 10 journals and also editor-in-chief of Indian Hospital Infection. He has been awarded with the Science and Technology Government of India Young Scientist Award, Research Fellowship from India School of Medical Research, Indian Immunology Society Young Scientist Award, European Federation of Immunological Societies Travel Award, and a Immunology Travel Award. We welcome you, Dr. Pandey. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Welcome, sir. Our next speaker, Jasper Singh ji, is founder and CEO of Wordsworth ED. Wordsworth English Lab is designed for highly research initiative of ACT Unit Group. It is a trusted education company with 2 decades of service in technology, education, and training. Its expertise in technology and multimedia content development has been instrumental in presenting a world-class language lab function for academia in India. In a short span of time, Wordsworth English Language Lab has managed considerable recognition across the country for its unique content and technology. Over 3,000 installations in institutions across the country stand testimony of the quality in product, implementation, training, and service provided at UNIV and its committed network of dealers. We welcome you, Jaswinder sir. Thank you for joining. Our next speaker, Mr. Luke Macedo. Luke is head of cluster with Furtado School of Music. Furtado School of Music is India's largest music educator. It is a brand which is synonym to music in our country. It has a 150-year-old rich legacy. It has been working with 200 plus leading schools of India. It has trained over 1 lakh students. It owns many renowned titles like Bandit, Piano Concert, Cadence, Workshops, High Jam Training, FSM Exams, In-Center Recital, FSM Recital. It enjoys partnerships with renowned institutions like Berklee College of Music and NMI IMS School of Performing Arts. So we welcome you, Luke. Thank you for joining. With this, I would request all our speakers if you can have your opening remark. So I would request Pramod sir if we can begin with you, your opening remark. Pramod sir, we are not able to hear you. You are on mute, sir.
I think
You are still on mute.
you can.
Sir, you are still on mute. Okay. So there is an icon at the screen.
Mic icon, sound icon.
Yes, the red colored icon.
Yes, that's it,
Yes,
sir. Done.
Yes, sir, you are audible now.
Am I okay now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. Sorry for this mix up. Well, so we are here to talk about new education policy, I understand.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Are we to So I think lots of people find different aspects of new education policy appealing, and the whole country has been talking about that we've gone somewhere wrong, that percentage of marks kept on increasing, they kept on going to from 90s and then to 95, 97. There was a limit, and rote learning of art of scoring in an examination is what we would of new education policy, where the emphasis is on summative assessment till at least grade 10, and there's more emphasis on bringing in other subjects like even physical education. Important, but I'm a little concerned to start with about saying that there will be a consensus assessment in 3, 5, 6, 8, 10. So 3, 5, 8. This assessment, I just hope that in India, assessment means an examination, and there is no competition to move on for coaching, and this may, if not handled well, is my first roadblock that I find in NEP. As we go along, we'll talk more, but I think as an opening remark, I very welcome national education policy, but there are issues which need to be clarified and need to be understood more.
Right. Thank you, Pramod sir. Certainly, this has been, this is being seen as a challenge by many educators. How we are going to, cope up with this kind of frequent assessment. We'll talk about it more. Thank you, sir. I'll come back to you. Now, I would request Arpitji, your opening remark.
Yes, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay, great. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Arpit, and I'm an edupreneur and school leader based in Dehradun. It's an incredible privilege for me to be invited over here, and I wholeheartedly thank World Education Review for having invited me. It's an incredible honor to be speaking in front of Mr. Pramod Sharma and, of course, all the other educators, given that Sir is someone I deeply admire and respect. I'm going to be speaking on Every Learner Matters, the inclusion and equity aspect in education, because that's a topic which is very close to my heart and was deeply ingrained into me while at my alma mater at the Doon School. I certainly believe that education is the single greatest tool for achieving social justice and equality. Inclusive and equitable education, while indeed an essential gift and goal in its own right, is also critical to achieving an inclusive and equitable society in which every citizen has the opportunity to dream, thrive, and contribute to the nation. The education system must aim to benefit India's children so that no child loses any opportunity to learn and excel because of circumstances of birth or background. The Sustainable Development Goal, SDG 4, is the education goal which aims to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. The NEP seeks to reaffirm that bridging the social category gaps in access, participation, and learning outcomes in school education will continue to be one of the major goals of all education sector development programs. I'll take it forward in my next statement, but those are my opening remarks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Arpitji, for sharing that. These are very important points, and we all are very excited to hear your ideas, on those things. Thank you, sir. Now, I would request Suptika, ma'am, if we can have your quick opening remark, Suptika ji. I would request Dr. Ramin, Kunalji ji, Kunalji ji, if we can have your opening remark, Suptika ji, I believe.
Yeah, good evening. I am audible.
Good evening. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, one and all. It's a great opportunity to share screen with you all. I am highly privileged. Thanks to organizer for giving me a chance. As everybody knows, education policy of any country is collection of rules, laws, and framework of education system. NEP 2020 has replaced 34-year-long education policy of India. NEP 2020 has been formulated in order to make India as a knowledgeable superpower, keeping the desired globalized requirement in alignment to other countries. Focus of NEP is to bring the sweeping changes in the education at various stages of the development of a child to a responsible and contributory citizen. It aims to make students skillfully employable. It also formulated various bodies to take care exclusive work in education system. Best thing which I like about NEP is मेरा देश बदल रहा है. Yes, मेरा देश बदल रहा है. This is the best thing about the NEP. Whenever there is any change in a system, there are challenges. So today I will speak about the challenges and how we convert them in opportunities. It's my opening remark, and later I will tell what are the challenges and how we can convert these challenges into opportunities. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kunalji. We are all excited to hear your ideas on those points. Thank you, sir. Now I would request Suptika ji. I believe you have joined us back. Your opening remark, ma'am. Suptika ji, I believe again facing some challenge. Dr. Pandey, I'll come to you.
Challenge. Actually, I was having simultaneously some other work also. I was taking interview, and anyway, I was muted due to that reason. And I just want to say hi to everyone, and it's a real pleasure to be in the same platform with so many people who are enlightened and who are experts in their own fields. And I am happy that we are taking up a burning issue right now because we are heading towards changing our country. Just Mr. Kunaljeet Singh sir ने बोला भी कि मेरा देश बदल रहा है. But there in this sentence, there is a big challenge towards what? We have lofty goals, but have you ever given it a thought whether these goals are viable for a country like us? Whether we will be getting the status of a developed nation soon, anytime soon? That's what we are worried about, and we should discuss about it because I think here this platform is the right platform to start with. And I'll be dealing with ECCE issues and any program that are spelled out in the national education policy related to ECCE, and we can talk about that later. But in the opening message, I would like to say that if my country is undergoing a change, are we the change makers in truest sense of the word? That's it. Thank you so much.
Right, absolutely. You are the change maker, and you have also, prepare, the people who are going to, going to face that change, in coming time. Thank you, Suptika ji. We'll come back to you. I would request Dr. Pandey, if we can have your quick opening remark.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. Myself, Dr. Ravindra Pandey. I am a faculty in Department of Biomedical Engineering, Biotechnology at SRM University that is located in Sonipat. It's really my pleasure, and I would like to say a special thanks to World Education Review to inviting us and giving us this opportunity to discuss so important topic of a country where we are going to talk about education. Education is the heart of any country, and all the development, everything, that all depends on the education. If we have a very good education in our country, mostly problem can be sorted out. So this is really very exciting topic. And what I would like to say, as my opening remark, this is a really revolutionary start from Government of India to have a new education policy. There are many challenges, but we are the people, like many leaders who are sitting here, we are the people that we need to implement and change our country. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey. Now I would request Jaswinder ji, your opening remarks, sir.
Yeah. Good afternoon, and Pramod ji, good afternoon to you. I've met you long back, and yes, we all respect Pramod ji as a very senior person in the academic history of our country. I would say that. To start with, we're talking about NEP, and my focus is going to be NEP and languages because that's what we deal with. But before I get onto that, yes, this is a very ambitious project, but we have to dream big to become big. I would say that we all have to work towards it. I would say there's somebody or there's a group of people who have actually put their brains together to formulate a policy. It is in our hands to implement that, and how do we implement that is going to be the result. We all have to work towards it. Truly a very ambitious plan, and if we are aiming at to become a Vishwa Guru, that's what we're talking about. We have the manpower, we have the brain, but we did not have the right direction for these brains, and most of them would be drained out into other countries, and the people who are left back were people without any directions. So this policy actually has been designed to give equal opportunity to different kinds of people. Not everybody thinks the same. Not everybody wants to do the same thing. So they've given various opportunities, various ways of getting into vocational training and other things. So my focus is going to be on this in the next session when it comes. Thank you, Raju. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaswinder ji. Now I would request Luke. Luke, welcome back, and your opening remarks, sir.
Yes, thank you so much, Rajulji. It's great to be here among everybody. My name is Luke, and I work in Fadado School of Music. Fadado School of Music actually is an organization which, which basically formulates and we make curriculum. We make music curriculum, and our strength is music and the arts. So why we are really, we're really happy with this new education policy is because it gives so much of stress on vocational studies as well. Because I know a lot of my compatriots, I know a lot of people, students, even elderly gentlemen as well, who have taken, they have rejected the whole mainstream career choice, and they've really gone ahead with what, which is their natural aptitude. So if a student is going ahead with their natural aptitude, if let's say I'm a musician and I want to study music, I want to make music as a career, then I need a very lucrative and proper path chalked out in front of me, which I feel that now this education policy has started taking a little seriously, because if you see, they have given importance to it, and they said that, okay, now if you're taking a physics, then maybe you might need to take a music with a physics, or maybe you might need to take an art with biology, something like that. So it gives a lot of confidence to people, because now there's going to be sponsors will be a little more confident, and there are going to be more people who are going to be more confident. So artists, musicians are going to be more confident now, and they're going to love the education system. Artists and musicians do not like the education system, and we need to get them to like the education system. So this is a very good and a very positive move. So a little about it later on when I come back to it. Thank you, Rajuji.
Thank you, Luke. And now with this, we come to the second part of the session, which is the main talk session. I'll request all our speakers to share your perspective in detail for 8 to 10 minutes. And before I formally invite our speakers, for the main talk, I would just share the kind of learnings we have had during our 75 sessions. Almost everyone believe that this is a wonderful document. This NEP has a potential to place India at that Vishwa Guru kind of position in coming time if executed well. But almost everyone have raised apprehension and doubts that do we really have the capability to execute this policy, capability and intent. So while I would request our speakers, while you are sharing your interpretation on national education policy, I would also request if you can suggest a kind of a roadmap, or you can share your suggestions for other educationists or other education leaders in their part. So I believe Pramod sir had just lost the connection, so he'll be joining us back. So Arpit ji, if we may begin with you, I would request if we can hear your ideas and thoughts on national education policy.
Sure. Yeah, I was on mute. Yes, great. So like obviously all of us agree that it's a landmark policy with a lot of inclusions and brilliant recommendations. And like I mentioned, since my topic has to do with inclusion and equity, that is what majorly I've researched on and I'll be talking about. So while the Indian education system and successive government policies have made steady progress towards bridging gender and social category gaps in all levels of school education, large disparities still remain, especially at the secondary level, particularly for socio-economic disadvantaged groups, which we call SEDGs, that have been historically underrepresented in education. I am glad to note that initiatives are being undertaken to ensure that all students from such groups, despite inherent obstacles, are provided various targeted opportunities to enter and excel in the education system through the NEP provisions. The socio-economic disadvantaged groups can be broadly classified as under the gender identities, particularly what we know in terms of gender inequalities, male and females, and transgender individuals. The second one, socio-economic identities such as STs, SCs, OBCs, and minorities. Geographical identities such as students from villages, such as the ones like where I cater to an underserved population, small towns, and aspirational districts. Disabilities, including learning disabilities, socio-economic conditions such as migrant communities, low-income households, children in vulnerable situations, and lastly, victims of trafficking, orphans, including child beggars in urban areas and the urban poor. While the overall enrollments in school declined steadily from grade 1 to 12, this decline in enrollment is significantly more pronounced for many of the SEDGs, with even greater declines for female students within each of the SEDGs, and often even steeper in higher education. It will be and has been a top priority to bring these children back into the education fold as early as possible and to prevent further students from dropping out, with a goal to achieve 100% gross enrollment ratio in preschool to secondary level by 2030, as is envisioned in the NEP.
I think
As we all know,
it's 2025.
it's 25.
In the policy, it says so.
It's 2030, ma'am.
And they're looking at not 100%. I think they're looking at 50%. Right now, it's 35%.
I would request, if we can hold down and hold it up, let the speaker finish first, and we can share our ideas once he is finished.
Sure. A major
Right.
development since the last policy has been the right of children to free and compulsory education, which we also know as RTE, which laid down legal underpinnings for achieving universal elementary education. There have been various successful policies and schemes such as targeted scholarships, conditional cash transfers to incentivize parents to send their children to school, providing bicycles for transport, etc., that have significantly increased participation of socially and economic disadvantaged groups in the schooling system in certain areas. These successful policies and schemes must be significantly strengthened across the country. Providing bicycles and organizing cycling and walking groups to provide access to schools have shown to be particularly powerful methods in increasing participation of female students, even at lesser distances, because of the safety benefits and comforts to parents that they provide. Meanwhile, counselors and well-trained social workers that work with and connect with students, parents, schools, and teachers in order to improve attendance and learning outcomes have been found to be especially effective for children in urban poor areas. The fundamental principles of NEP in this respect, as it states verbatim, are full equity and inclusion as the cornerstone of all educational decisions to ensure that all students are able to thrive in the education system. They aim to recognize, identify, and foster the unique capabilities of each student. For this, extensive use of technology in teaching and learning, removing language barriers to increase access for Divyang, or what we also know as differentially abled students, one-on-one teacher and tutor peer tutoring, open schooling, appropriate infrastructure, and suitable technological interventions to ensure access can be particularly effective for certain children with disabilities. Ensuring that inclusion and equal participation of children with disabilities in the early childhood education and the schooling system will also be accorded the highest priority, as is stated in the NEP. Children with disabilities will be able to be fully prepared in the regular schooling system from the foundation stage to the higher education. To this end, schools and school complexes will be provided resources for the integration of children with disabilities, the recruitment of special educators with cross disability training, and for establishment of resource centers wherever needed, especially for children with severe or multiple disabilities. We should have, and like we discussed, certain recommendations that we should give ourselves. I believe that all schools should have barrier-free access to children with disabilities that enable them to commute to school logistically as per the Disabilities Act. The policy additionally recognizes that special and critical role that women play in society and in shaping moral social values. Therefore, providing a quality education to girls is the best way to increase the education levels, not just in present, but also in future conditions. The policy thus recommends that schemes designed to include students from the socially economic disadvantaged groups should be specially targeted towards girls in these groups. In addition, the Government of India will constitute a gender inclusion fund to build the nation's capacity towards providing a quality education for all girls as well as transgender students. To facilitate learning for all students with special emphasis on these groups, the scope of school education will be broadened to facilitate multiple pathways to learning involving both formal and non-formal education modes. Open and distance learning mode programs offered by National Institute of Open Schooling and State Open School will be expanded and strengthened for meeting learning needs of young people in India who are not able to attend school physically. States have been encouraged to develop these offerings in regional languages by establishing new and strengthening old centers such as State Institute of Open Schooling. Now, I'll quickly run through the initiatives we've been taking forward in terms of bridging equality, educational equity at Mahanandmayi Memorial School. So for quite some time, we've been offering need-cum merit-based scholarships to all socially and economic disadvantaged groups based on various parameters, and that we've been doing for very long. We're fortunate we have Mr. Pramod Sharma here. We are members of the AFS Cultural Exchange Program, which we've been running specially so that we can have kids from different areas. That not only helps us bridge educational equity, but also promotes cultural exchange and respect for diversity. We started something called the Oxfam Club, which is a gender equality club in association with Oxfam and Young Leaders Council. Throughout lockdown, we've been distributing free books and stationery for our students, especially the ones who hail from destitute backgrounds. We have a full-time counselor that has been dealing with parents in offline and online mode, attending to students from disadvantaged groups, and of course speaking to parents on how they can continue to access education since they cannot really afford to be there virtually every now and then. Fundraising plays a very crucial role as part of our strategy, and we've been very fortunate that a lot of philanthropic individuals have been helping us sponsor education and also in developing critical infrastructure, especially in terms of technology that we've been able to provide. I'm especially thankful to the Atal Innovation Mission Niti Aayog that continues to help us in bridging these gaps by running the Atal Tinkering Lab and facilitating futuristic education and skill-based modes. We're also promoting sports for girls, which is a special endeavor and emphasis in collaboration with a lot of private foundations and NGOs. So we've got different teams for girls and special training staff, especially women who are training with our girls. And like I said, we lay special emphasis on skill development at MAM so that all these children who hail from a socially disadvantaged background can immediately develop 21st century skill sets and become employable in future with respect to jobs of tomorrow. Just to sum it up, all the above policies and measures are absolutely critical to attain full inclusion and equity for all these groups, but they are not sufficient. What is also required is a change in school culture. All participants in the school education system, including teachers, principals, administrators, counselors, and students, will have to be sensitized to the requirement of all students, the notions of inclusion and equity, and the respect, dignity, and privacy of all persons. Such an educational culture will provide the best pathway to help students to become empowered individuals who, in turn, will enable society to transform into one that is responsible towards its most vulnerable citizens. Inclusion and equity will become a key aspect of teacher education and the training for all leadership, administrative, and positions in schools. Efforts will have to be made to recruit more high quality teachers and leaders from socially disadvantaged groups to bring in excellent role models for all students so that we can together emphasize equity and inclusiveness in education. Thank you.
Thank you, Arpitji. You have touched upon this very important part, and you have given us a hope that NEP promises, to bridge this gap in a wonderful direction. You also talked about these, gender inclusion fund, the need for special educators. You also talked about the kind of hope we can have from that, the young students' perspective with this NEP. So thank you, RPG. We'll come back to you. Now, I would request, in some sense, the Bhisham Pitama of this Indian education fraternity, Pramod Sharma sir. Pramod sir, it's a great honor, and it is a privilege to have you. I would request if we can have your perspective. How do you see? You were also the part of leadership when the last policy was announced and also tried to execute. So what lessons we should learn from that experience, and what would be the roadmap you suggest for all of us? Pramod sir, over to you. Sir, you are on mute again.
Is it okay now? Am I?
Yes, it is. It is okay now, sir.
Okay. So since you mentioned last policy, we were part of the group which was agitating that residential schools should be exempted from the kind of education policy that we were coming up at that point of time. Anyway, this time Arpit has been very, very not opportunistic, but optimistic about his statements. But at my age, one becomes a little skeptic. Inclusive education, equity for all, beautiful, laudable objectives. This means that at the moment there are reforms in pre-primary sector, school of government schools, primary government schools, and they have to be brought in along with the senior secondary and secondary schools so that they can share resources. Now that's a huge task because as we know, primary schools in government sector have nothing. And the secondary, senior secondary school in government schools, some have, some may not have that much. Now, where is this money going to come from? Arpit talked about inclusivity. Fantastic. About Divyang. What about occupational therapist? What about speech therapist? What about training the teachers?
Braille, sir. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
we don't have Braille facility in schools
So,
for the blind students.
Suptika ji, I have one request. I would request, we need to, because, let the one speaker finish, then we'll take your comments. You can share your comments during your talk. Right. Thank you. Pramod sir.
I'll carry on. So, we run a special school in Noida called Mata Bhagwanti Shraddha Niketan. So, we understand what it means. You need a physiotherapist, you need a lab, you need a whole lot of things to support inclusivity of this kind, if we are serious about it. And over the years, no matter which education policy has come, we have spent 3% to 3.5% of the GDP on education, no matter what. And in this budgets, the last two budgets, have we seen any increase? No. There is no increase to 6%. So where is the money come from? As far as if somebody is thinking about these cluster schools, that cluster schools will provide money, the private schools have been told that there will be a managing committee. And the managing committee will consist of the parents and teachers, and that will run the school. So the promoter who has spent millions is out of running of the school. Will anybody in his right mind will spend money on education, will open school? So it is all right to make a huge policy. It is all right to enthuse everybody, but it has to be supported by money. Money makes the mayor go. We talk about hiring good teachers. How do you hire good teachers? You have to compensate them. Why do you don't have good teachers in the rural private schools? There's a difference between rural private school and urban private school. So why is it that they are not being able to deliver? So all this to talk about transgender and gender, we need to create that kind of toilet facilities. We have not been able to create toilet facilities for girl child till today in schools. Lots of girls don't go to school because of this. So where is the money? Where is the will? I'm very optimistic about B.Ed courses, that B.Ed courses will move into university, and there will be a 4-year B.Ed course and a 2-year B.Ed course and a 1-year B.Ed course. Is there money coming into higher education to be able to support it? When we know that survey after survey, the government colleges and universities, there are positions of professors lying vacant. I know about Delhi University because I live in Delhi. 20 years back, in Delhi University, nobody talked about tuitions. In last 10 years, you go to classes and students will tell you that they have to go for a tuition. In colleges, we have reduced the standard of education to this level. So I do not get enthused by great laudable objectives and policies. It has to be backed by finance. It has to be backed by commitment. And that till now has not appeared on the scene. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramod sir, and for highlighting. No, we need to, but we need to be critical, and we need to find ways. Okay, so this is we need to ask how we are going to do this. So thank you, Pramod sir, for highlighting these areas. In fact, most of the educators, have raised these points that these would be the challenge. How we are going to the budget is one thing. Teachers training is another. These are the very valid points, sir. And we'll again come back to you, find solutions.
Thank
because
you.
You are the person.
If there is no criticism, there will be no solution found. The idea is to find solution and must proceed. In that
absolutely, absolutely. Sir, you are the person. You are among the leaders of this industry. So you are the people, who can highlight the areas where we need to, look for. And again, you are the people who will come back for the solutions. Right. So I'll come back to you with questions, sir. Now I would request Suptika Viswasji. Suptika ji, you represent that training side of this education. The vocational education has received a special emphasis in this national education policy. So, what are your perspective? How do you see this national education policy, Suptika ji? Ma'am, you are on mute now.
National education, I think I'm audible right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. National Education Policy 2020, as Sir Pramod sir has also highlighted, that it is an amalgamation of lofty goals, lofty objectives, and we appreciate that. We must look up, but in our conditions, are we ready for it? If we are ready, then we can definitely achieve. But that question comes on the word ready, our readiness. I don't know how long will it take to be ready actually and to take a leap towards achieving those goals. Today, I'm here to talk about ECC especially because that is the area which is most neglected. And when the draft policy was there, right in front of me for brainstorming at the SCRT level, we were going through all the issues and all the objectives and the programs. There in the very first chapter, it was the chapter dedicated
The heading goes like this: strengthening early childhood care and education. Now, strengthening early childhood care and education becomes meaningless if we don't give it a coverage of Right to Education Act. We were hopeful that in the draft policy it was given the importance, like at the end it was written that Right to Education Act should be extended to all children between 3 to 6 years. But I think in the main policy, when the final policy came out, there was no mention of that. So we were worried that whether this strengthening word will be fruitful enough without giving it a coverage to, under Right to Education Act. Now, I would like to discuss about few things here. First thing is that quality early childhood care and education available for all children between 3 to 6 years by 2025. Now, have we done the mapping? How many children have under this age group in the whole country? Are the schools available to bring them in their folds? Did everyone do the mapping, school mapping, or the mapping of the population of this age group? I don't know. We don't get it in the net. There's no data about it proper and believable data, convincing data. I don't think it is available. Nobody did it. So this is the homework we should be doing. First, find out how many children are there in the whole country, state-wise, falling in this category, in this age group, 3 to 6 years. Then only we can say that by 2025, that is the target year, that we should be bringing them inside the school, in the preschool. Then the second point, expansion and strengthening of facilities with multi-pronged approach based on local needs, geography, and existing infrastructure. But when we visit a preschool, we see what kind of facilities are available there. In the private sector, I have no complaint. But in the government sector, children are still sitting on the floor in this extreme weather in Delhi. They are still sitting on the floor on tattered mattress. This is the picture of our preschool. Next, special attention, priority to socio-economically disadvantaged areas and communities. Now, this is an area we all are concerned about. But I don't think there is any zeal towards really be concerned about the people belonging to this disadvantaged communities or socioeconomically poor children. Every day I pass through Moti Bagh. I don't know how many of you are from Delhi, but I stay in South Delhi, and my institute is in Central Delhi, Connaught Place. So every day I have to pass through, pass under Moti Bagh flyover, and there's a big cross sections of all the, ways. And, every day in daytime and during night's time, I see so many child beggars. I've been talking to the people from writing to the president, talking to the officials, to the traffic police, to the DCP, that we have to stop this at the traffic signals. But it is falling on deaf ears. Nobody is really paying any heed to it. All the VVIPs, they pass through that route in their swanky cars. I have nothing against that. They see these child beggars, and nobody really is working something to stop begging by children. Why are we so hard-hearted? I don't know. Why doesn't it move us? We are talking about so many good things in the policies, but we are ignoring the basics. Ignoring the basics. We choose to ignore. Then what's the use of policies if these policies are not viable? The ministers, they pass through all the crossings, some time or the other, but they see it, but they are not doing anything. If they want, they can do. The traffic police can be given the authority to stop child begging. You know, when we were talking about child beggars, brainstorming session of these policies, this very policies, the chief secretary chose to stop me, or he says we can discuss about it later. Mrs. Biswas, we can't talk about it here. Why? Why we choose to deny this? People say many things about it. There's a big racket working. There's this, there's that, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, but I don't believe in those things. But what I believe in that our ministers, our people have the power to stop it. But we choose to be blind. Next, the policy emphasizes the criticality of early childhood education and the persistence of its advantages throughout an individual's life. Now, we know that this is true. This sentence is very, very true. ECC lays the foundation for any individual for future success. And if we are targeting at attaining the status of a developed nation, then we have to put stress on this sentence. We have to make ECCE so successful that later on we be satisfied that yes, we have invested in education. And this investment has far-reaching effect in one's life. 10 times, if not less, if not more. 10 times in one's life. Are we doing it? Are we ready to do it? Now, I would like to screen share and would stress on the importance of ECCE. Let's see, we all know. Everybody is so enlightened here, so aware, we all know. But I just want to go through it and see that so many advantages are there.
I would just request, ma'am, just keep the time limit, in mind.
Okay. Right. Okay, then I can do it later. But what I want to say that in the next issue, it is written that in the next point, it is written that early childhood education under the purview of the Ministry of Education ensure linkage with the rest of the school education. Now, rest of the school education can be successful if our ECC is successful. If ECC is qualitative, quantitative, and ECC is perfect in its purview, then the later education will also be perfect. Later education will also be fruitful. And when we talk about this, especially, we can see that ECC can hold the ground for our children, and our children we can, get rid of failure, school dropouts, so many things, which we are, right now grappled with. We can get rid of that if we put our energy, put our funds in ECC, then we'll not look back. In the policy also, when we talk of ECC, there's a very important point: significant expansion and strengthening of facilities for early childhood education. Now, there 4 points are there, very, very important. I don't know whether these ideals will see the light of the day or not in coming years, but I would like to put stress on these because if we are able to achieve or attain 10, at least 50% of it, I think we can say that yes, we've done it. The first point says strengthening and expansion of the Anganwadi system to include a robust education component. Yes, Anganwadis are there, but all of us know the scenario there. What kind of education is being imparted in Anganwadis? What all stakeholders are doing there? Untrained teachers, lack of facilities, lack of clean environment, and the list can go on. But does anybody bother? Second, co-locating Anganwadis are there. Primary schools will also be found, can be found. But is there any link between the two? Is there any improvement? Qualitative improvement? Quantitative improvement? Again, a doubt is there. So many gaps can be witnessed. Next, co-locating preschools with primary schools where possible. Co-locating preschools with primary schools. I think preschools are rare seen in the vicinity because nobody cares about preschools. In Delhi, in this session, there was no nursery admission. I don't know how many of you know it. By this time, the government takes out the advertisement, the information goes to all the schools in Delhi for nursery admission. This time, it is not there. It is not happening. Does anybody care? Who cares? Where will the children go? The children falling in this age group, the parents are ready to send them to schools, but there's no, I think, what should I say? No interest. There's no interest in the government sector, in education department. Nobody knows what will happen. No order. So we are talking of this, and actually something else is happening. Next, building standalone preschools. Pramod sir said very nicely, he summed up also, that who will invest money because they are there to grab the neck of the investors. They all are doing business in education. What business? Why don't they see that private sector is giving their full support? Can the government schools, I've been here in Delhi and working in education since last 27 years. I haven't seen a single good school being built, new school. They renovate the school and takes the credit. They take the credit for that. They renovate it and take the credit that we've made a school. World-class school. How many? Did they build a new school anywhere? On a new ground? Since last 27 years, I didn't see in the government sector. There were many private schools, private initiatives. They are supporting the government by building schools, by providing standard education of comparable standard. They're giving all supports, but then again, they are blamed that they're making money. Unless and until they're allowed to make money, how can they open another school?
if a particular group has built one school, a new school, state-of-the-art structure, state-of-the-art facilities, providing world-class education in Delhi. I'm talking about only in Delhi. If they are not allowed to make money, how will they open up another school, which is the need of the hour? Looking at the population we have,
Right.
bursting population. Do we give it a thought? Many things are to be talked about. Many things are to be discussed. Please generate awareness for preschool education, which is the need of the hour. If we want
Absolutely, absolutely.
if we want that our children will be somewhere tomorrow, financially independent, highly educated, then we need to have good preschool, good preschooling in our country. So I won't go further. It is time consuming because many issues. It's not to discuss about an important issue like ECC, but it is a request to you that you people can do it. You people can do it. So generate enough awareness so that we can have preschools,
Absolutely,
enough schools
absolutely,
to
ma'am.
accommodate our children, and please try to stop child beggars. That should be taken on a serious note. They are our
Absolutely,
children.
absolutely.
They are our children.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suptika ji. For your passionate, perspective and thoughts. Certainly ECC is the most important part, and one thing I believe, since the announcement of our national education policy, one positive thing about this policy, that it has generated that kind of awareness among the masses, that the most important phase of a child's education is the early part of education. Earlier there were schools in villages, the budget schools in private segment. They were not that focused. Even today they are not that focused, but that has the awareness has been created to some extent, by this
Not
policy.
excuse me. We can't say that it was just the focus wasn't there. They do not want to focus on it. Oh, everything in our country is politically driven. And sorry to state, politically
I have
driven. We can't go
I
above
appreciate
politics.
your part. I appreciate your part, ma'am. But again, any industry, across spectrum, you can see that any industry is always consumer driven. If parents are that aware, and if parents are asking tough questions from schools, be it private schools or the budget schools or like that, we want that kind of best education, best teachers in the primary segment. The challenges in education is the consumer is aware. He's not asking those questions, the right questions from the supplier. No. So, yes, absolutely, I agree with you. Most of us agree with you on most of the points. That the more primary focus should be on this, early child care. And certainly we'll keep talking about it. Thank you, Suptika ji. We'll come back to you with questions. With this now, I would request Kunal ji. Kunal sir, you represent that vocational, the world of education. It has received a great attention, from government and the people. And I would request if you can share your perspective, Kunal ji.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Good evening. Yes, total NEP is focused on skill-based education. And before starting that, I want to say something about the education. Education must be such type of umbrella under which every individual should feel safe. It should be same for all. There should be no biasing under the education. Teachers are the torchbearer of education. We learn new lessons every day, and that change our mindset based on new experience and knowledge. According to John Dewey, if we teach today as we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow. Yes, that's why there is a need of new education policy. If we go and you taught the students old system, then we can't compete with the world. That is the much needed thing in today's scenario. I believe we all know about know-how of NEP 2020. My theme for the deliberation is to focus on challenges thrown by NEP 2020. I am in support of theory of management that challenges can be fruitfully converted into opportunities for the education system. In our country, every new initiative or policy bring new challenges. So now let us take one by one. Firstly, the main challenge that I think is political challenge. Whenever any government come up with any policy, first barrier they face is political. As in NEP 2020, states weren't consulted prior to making this policy. And when it comes to implementation in different states, the states having opposite government to center will pull their hands back, as in case we are seeing in farmers bill. In India, the hot topic is farmers bill because some states are not implementing what the union government is implementing. The same situation maybe arises in case of education policy. So we have to end political interference in every sphere of education. Its implementation depend largely on state government. So union government and state government have to work together in order to make a change for future generation. Next challenge, NEP is clear on destination, but silent about journey. It does not address the questions of how we would be there. So to overcome this challenge, we should prepare well to answer questions and queries as and when arise with the team of knowledgeable educationists. Next challenge, according to me, is introduction of English at class 6th. As we heard from our parents, that they face lot of difficulty in speaking English because it was introduced in later stage. Till now, they try to speak Angrezi rather than English. If formal teaching is done in mother tongue, how one can have confidence in optional language? That is the main challenge, which I think, because English is a global language. And if we want to compete with the world, then we should be perfectly in that language. Gap between influential and weaker section will widen as introducing English in 6th class prove very hard on children who come from lower, weaker economic social background compared to rich families. Next challenge is exit option at end of every year. If there is an exit option at the end of every year, in every institution, it will be almost impossible to design curricula that are suitable both for students who exit and who stay for completion of their study. But on other hand, it is good for those who took admission in a particular course because of peer pressure or society pressure, and then realize this course is not fit for them. They can easily change their stream. Next challenge is multidisciplinary approach. In this, student of science can opt for political science subject, or a student of art can opt physics as a subject. It becomes complex system. There will be lot of permutation and combination that a student can take. How we provide staff for them. This is also the main challenge. Flexibility must be lie in their choice of courses. That is, one can change after doing 12th, graduation and PG. But if someone change in between, then there is lot of complex system. So we can change the stream after 12th or after graduation or PG. We need proper implementation to ensure proper usage of resources. Lot of funds required for teacher training, translation, publishing, and so on. Best part is it emphasis on extracurricular activities and sports. Next challenge, according to me, is evaluation system. Nowadays, most exams require mugging up of concept in order to clear exam. We all are through these phases. This kind of knowledge evaporates in few months. So, NEP proposed to redesign exam pattern in such a way through which actual and true knowledge of student could be tested. But how exactly this will achieved is not clearly mentioned in NEP draft. As they say, earlier teacher used to evaluate student as per the performance throughout the year. Now, along with teacher, student will also self-evaluate themselves and also other students evaluate the performance of individual. No doubt, implementing new NEP practically in real world will be time-taking and very difficult process. As we know, earlier education policy took 20 years to implement it, though it is not properly implemented till now, as most of the government schools doesn't have adequate number of teachers, infrastructure, and lack of sanitation facility. NEP 2020 was most awaited and long overdue. Now focus needs to shift to its effective and efficient implementation in reality. After overcoming all the challenges, NEP will definitely be a landmark within the history of education. Every policy which is implemented in right direction with right and positive approach play a significant role within nation's future growth and development. It is a revolutionary document that is expected to change the fate of coming generations of our nation. We are much confident that if everything works as planned and policy gets implemented well, it will open new doors of opportunities to make our country, India, a thriving knowledge hub. New NEP will be the milestone in the future of education. Yes, it will be the great milestone in the future of education if it properly implemented. But we know that there is a very complex system and every time it needs some time. जैसे I want to give some example कि अगर हम अपना घर बनाने लगते हैं तो हम एक प्रॉपर एक बजट लेके चलते हैं, एक टाइम फ्रेम लेके चलते हैं, लेकिन सारा का सारा जो टाइम पीरियड है, बजट है, वो प्रॉपर जब हम स्टार्ट करते हैं काम को तो धीरे धीरे वो बढ़ता भी है और टाइम भी ज्यादा लगता है और कई बार कम भी लगता है. तो at now we can't say that it is not good or how it is implemented, but the best part is that yeah, we are going in a right direction कि हमने एक सोच बनाई है कि हमें कुछ चेंज करना है. With these remarks, I thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kunalji sir, for highlighting these areas. And I'm sure, you gave one example that how mother tongue will, make it further difficult to, learn other languages. And I'm sure Jaswinder sir has a very wonderful example, on that, the Gujarat doctors. And I'm sure he is going to present the example. You also talked about the exit and entry part, would make it difficult in curriculum designing. And but this is again a kind of a very innovative approach, towards that particular, higher education. And many people have also lauded this point. You also said positive about. You also talked about, in nutshell, you said like a revolutionary document. The execution shall be the key. And as all of the speakers have also said that execution shall be a challenge. Document is very good. Thank you, Kunalji. We'll come back to you. Now, with this, I would request Jaswinder sir. Sir, you have been working in education for many decades now. You have worked with corporates, you have worked with different education leaders. So I'm sure your perspective on national education policy, would be different. So I would request if we can have your ideas on national education policy. Jaswinder ji.
Yeah, thank you, Rajul ji, and good evening, everybody. I've heard Arpit ji, Pramod ji, Suptika ji, and then Kunal ji. Yes, this is a very ambitious policy. Yes, there are a lot of problems with the government. But my simple question to each one of us is, do we have a choice? Can we sit with the old system? No, we have to change. I remember something which a US admiral said, if you want to do something, if you want to change the world, get up and first make your bed. Pramod sir, right? So this is something important. We have to start working on it. Suptika ji, I know there are beggars not only in India, even in UK and even in Switzerland. There are they.
I'm sorry, sir. I've been to 2 foreign countries very recently, Singapore and Bangladesh. I didn't see a single child beggar.
Suptika ji, I would.
Ma'am, I have worked with the Bangladesh government.
Suptika ma'am, I would request, we can have, because otherwise we won't have time for the questions.
Right, right.
We
I'm
can
sorry.
interact
Right,
at the end of the
right.
session. Jaswinder sir, I would request, please don't open the open the house now. Sir,
Okay, okay.
over to you.
I'll just let Suptika ji. I worked with World Bank and UNESCO on education. The countries that I was working, one is Bahrain and the other was Bangladesh, where I have trained the education department of Bangladesh. I have seen Bangladesh, been to Dhaka n number of times, but the things are different. Anyway, let me get back to my point. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, there are issues. हम हाथ पे हाथ धर के नहीं बैठ सकते. We need to work on it. Okay. So my point is, the government has created a policy. They have written a policy. This policy has been written by educationists, by scientists, looking at the future, not looking at today. My simple point is, did any one of us think that India could develop a fighter jet with Mach 5 speed? We are going to Mach 6 speed. Did anyone think that India would have the BrahMos missile? Did anyone think that we would have a supersonic missile? So if there's a will, political will, things are possible. And I see that this present government at least has a will to go and change something. They brought this. I am not a pro ex political party or against the other party, but my point is, there's a policy that has come. Let us look at the merits. Even if we are not able to implement the entire policy in full part, even in little areas which they are important. Okay, they are going to have things. I'm sure if there's somebody who's the level of the chairman of ISRO, if he has put his heads into this, something would be there. The government would have this thing. They are going to increase the education budget, which was 3. I think they are going to make it 6 or something. Ideally it should be 8, but let it happen. See the state of Delhi. They have increased the budget. I have worked with the Delhi government. Yes, there are problems, but I see light at the end of the tunnel, though the tunnel is very long, and I'll go by that. Okay, coming on to my point is, I would want to talk about languages, because that's what we work with. We actually work with more than 1 million students on a daily basis. So first thing, I applaud, or I'm very happy that they've come up with the 3 language system. It is good to have early education in local language. I'll tell you why. Rajuji was talking about this Gujarat thing. I'll tell you, I'm from Ahmedabad, Gujarat. I was born here and I was brought up here. At my age, I'm 51. Most of the doctors who are of my age, they are all from Gujarati medium schools. Majority of them. What we've understood is the foundation years, their concepts are more clear than ours, because we used to struggle in English to actually understand what is being taught. But that doesn't mean that the home language is more important. That is there. Let them understand. English as a language will be there right from class 1. So I would like to come to a point put up by our sir, that there's going to be a difference if they start learning English at the age of 6th standard. No, it is not that way. You have to have 3 languages. You can start it right from 1st standard. Why can't we have multiple languages? A child by the age of 14, or by the age of 10, can actually acquire 5 languages. And what I'm told, that if a child speaks more than 3 languages, the brain works better. So that is important. Language, I don't think, will be a problem. English is going to stay there, because on one hand, we are talking about competing the world, becoming the Vishwaguru. That means the world is going to become small. We are going to become the factory of the world. We are already the back office of the world. We are going to be the service sector of the world. So language, English is going to be there. I don't think it can be challenged. And for your information, schools, if they choose, they can still teach in English. That is a suggestion, that you should teach in that way, but they can teach in English, so that is not a problem. Okay. Going on to the next part is that I'm so very happy that they've included vocational training. They've included X number of days of internship, school level. When they go and do internship in the local businesses, it can be a welder's place, it can be a car mechanic's place, it can be a bakery, it can be anything. They will start respecting other professions. Okay, not only that, they will also be able to understand that if I don't want to do the entire 4 years of graduation, but at this age I'll drop out and I already like baking, let me start a bakery shop. That is good enough. We don't see, they say that India, 84% of Indian graduates are useless. Why? Because all those 100% want to become doctors, engineers, and IT professionals and chartered accountants. You don't have place for that. So they are not being trained to do other work. Tell me one thing, how many times you wanted to have a plumber come to your house and how many days did you have to wait? Same is with the electrician, same is with the carpenter. You go to UK, a plumber owns a Mercedes. So what we need to do is we need to bring in dignity of labor. We need to let people know that any work that they do is worth it. And that is what will change. We don't need that many universities. We don't need each and every child to graduate. Who will do the other work? Right? The only thing is we need to bring them to parity, which RPG was talking about. That inclusiveness, yes. But let students choose, and that is what this policy is talking about. And one important thing that I'm talking about here is all this is great. It will work up. But we need to have the training force ready. We need to have the teachers ready. We need to train these teachers. And solution to all these problems is technology. If we are able to use technology the way we tried it in the pandemic time, I think a lot of problems can be solved. We can't have, like they say, one school at every 1 kilometer in the country. We already have one mobile at every centimeter, right? If we have connectivity, we can get the education delivered there. So that is something that we need to look at. We need to see to it that we get the right kind of teachers to do the right kind of things. If we have to train them, let's assess them. The assessment starts with teachers. I always say it is not comparing, it is not branding them that this is a A grade teacher or a B grade teacher, but you let the teacher know this is where you lack. So I say that this is like your blood test. If you get your blood test done, you know what kind of medicine, what is missing, and then you go get that. So there should be constant evaluation, self-evaluation, peer group evaluation. That works best, and that is how we will have I mean, people together. You know, I've been in this industry from last 30 years in the education industry. I've been developing software for education. I've seen the change. We started 30 years back creating content, and nobody would look at us. But today it is working. So what we need to do is accept whatever challenges come. And when we accept our challenges, I'm sure we will be able to achieve that. Whatever we can achieve. Yes, there are going to be loopholes. Yes, there are going to be problems. Problems are everywhere. If you're managing there, I don't see much of a problem here. Though I have just focused more on the vocational part and the language part, but I'm sure people who have written this policy must have something in mind. So I would talk about that, which is very, very important. One more important thing is that what we need to do, we've been talking about students. We've been talking that our students are just, you know, we are trained to be managers, to listen to what people tell us and do. Yes, that's right. We were never asked or allowed or trained to think. We were told this is what it is, do it. But now, if we bring in the concept of flipped classroom, that will change something. We need to train our students to ask questions, to counter question. They have to be convinced about certain things. And what I say is, don't teach them. Tell them this is what I'm going to teach. Go do research. Go find out. And then we discuss in the class. So classroom should be noisy, group discussion kind of a thing, rather than one person teaching and the other sitting, doing nothing. So if these changes are brought in, I think a lot of things can be done. So what we need to do is all we do is to change the mindset of the parents, mindset of the teachers, mindset of the students, and that will change us, because we as a country, I'm sure, we have a huge potential. All this wasted youth, if we do not train them, they will go the next